G'day and welcome to another episode of Does It Matter with Kareem. Been thinking a lot lately about how we process our day-to-day experiences. And most of the time when you drive your car, you make your breakfast, you do your coffee, the normal things that you generally do, you don't do that consciously most of the time. There's a certain degree of automaticity in the way that you're moving and what you're doing because you've done it so many times and you understand how it works. And it made me realise in martial arts, in sport, which has occupied a huge amount of my life, in writing, whether it be for journalistic pieces or novels, in every area I can think of, automaticity is huge. You get skillful at a given set of skills and then you're able to use words automatically with a certain degree of flow. Now, I'm much better at it in writing than in speech. And you get the same flow in martial arts, in sports, playing tennis, whatever it is. It might be ping pong, table tennis, wrestling. You get that flow that comes from knowing techniques, having done techniques over and over and over again with you've paid the rep god who dues and you're kicking butt now. You can do it in your sleep. And I thought, well, that seems to be the flow state, the zone that lots of people are talking about. At least that's been my experience of it. You get into flow states fairly easily nowadays. I'm getting old and crunchy. One of the benefits is that it's a lot easier to meditate and to get into a flow state when I'm concentrating. And when I notice that I'm not in the flow state, when I'm most disturbed, most upset, most ineffective, dysfunctional, it's quite the opposite of the flow state. My mind is looping on a subject, on a thing, it's focusing excessively on something, whatever it might be, and I can't escape the loop, and that seems to be one of the most common human experiences of all time. So when I have people ask me, so how I'm sparring, or I'm training, or I'm trying to write a long paper, or I'm in a debate and I'm engaging a difficult argument. How do I do that without? How do I do that? How do I enter that flow state and engage with a shifting focus? And the key seems to be to embrace that automaticity. Number one, you need to know what you're doing with a certain degree of competence, a high enough degree of competence that you can shift from one technique to another. You also need to give yourself sufficient time to move from one stance, one position, one flow state to another, to keep that flow going. And the thing that will interfere in that is expectation and emotion. Those two things will interfere. Expectation is a powerful preconception about how things should work, and it does not accept the endless morphability and variability of the flow state. It's too rigid. So you're going to be surprised and disappointed, and then you're going to have an emotion about being surprised and disappointed. And emotions are a standing wave of energy in the brain that demands instant attention. Okay, it's a cascade of dopamine, serotonin, and various other drugs and hormones rushing through your system saying, hey, take notice. That's what it's for. Or, hey, feel good, or hey, feel bad, or whatever it is. You know, it's inducing a state. The problem is you're trying to be in a flow state, but you're having an emotional reaction that is pulling you away from that flow state or preventing you from getting into that flow state. So when you're struggling to get work done, to not be distracted, to learn a new thing or learn a difficult thing that you've been struggling with, when you're struggling to just get on with life because your heart is broken, or you're incredibly disappointed or crushed or hurt by the actions of others, whatever it might be, it can be a lot of things. Emotions and expectations about how things should or shouldn't be, and the emotions that we have about those things will prevent you from that automaticity that will lead often to a flow state of varying qualities. It will keep you on a feedback loop where you will keep going back over and over again to that emotion, to the thoughts that caused it, to the behaviors that caused it, and you will just keep reliving it, re-experiencing it, re-examining it, and you will not be able to do what you need to do, which is get on with your life. One step. For a second, pretend, fake it. Pretend you don't care for a second. Pretend that your focus is elsewhere. Breathe. And allow your focus just to linger, just for a moment, on the mundane task you need to do, or the important task you need to do. To focus on anything but the mental trap that your emotions are creating for you. And then do that again and again. And it will be a litany of failure initially. But you'll have moments, even from the start, where you're able to, just for a second or two, shift away from that mental loop. And the next day, once again, and the next day, and the next day. At some point, you're going to get very good at shifting your attention from an automatic reaction to stuff, thoughts, feelings, events, and to a chosen one. And that's when you're becoming more of the architect, the curator of your own mind. I'm certainly not an expert at it, but because I'm far from the most disciplined person and a fairly flawed individual, I had to learn this, and I have to continue to practice it because it benefits me enormously, and I would like to see it benefit others. Shifting attention, being able to shift your attention just for even seconds at a time, and then minutes, and then hours, and then days, and constantly being able to bring your attention back to where it needs to be, away from where it shouldn't be anymore. This is the secret to dealing with addictions, the secret to dealing with sadness, the secret to grief, all those things, is to be able to experience those things, but then shift your attention away when you need to. Prevent yourself falling into traps. And it's done through breath, meditation, it's done through anything that teaches you to focus your mind on where you are right now and to engage that natural automaticity. So when you're trying, don't use new things to try to do this. So don't go and try and learn Spanish and go, well, teaching Spanish will help me get over my broken heart with my ex-girlfriend, or that job loss I just suffered, or whatever it is, whatever nasty, the injury I've just had. No, the new thing, you don't have the skills. You won't be able to engage automaticity in a skill set that you don't have. So use developed skill sets. Use things you already know quite well. Doesn't mean you can't learn stuff as well, but when you're struggling with attention and keeping your attention where it needs to be and not where your mind is inclined to take it, the child mind, then use a preconceived, well understood set of skills that you may fall into an automatic state and eventually, hopefully, cross fingers, a flow state. Flow states are healing. Flow states build confidence, they build competency, and they make you realize you won't die from just feeling bad, no matter how bad you feel. It won't kill you, and that you will become stronger because of it, that you can operate despite it. Not only despite it, it can even eventually become fuel to drive you. Hopefully that helps. Hopefully I've conveyed what I'm trying to say clearly. Everything's a battle for attention. Where your attention rests is where your power rests. It's also where your folly rests. And if you don't want to be engaged in folly, but engaged in reason and power and efficacy, and you don't want to be trapped in grief or suffering more than you need to be, then training your attention to go to where it needs to, building confidence and self-image based upon a mastery of your own mind and a mastery of your emotions is essential. You're not meant to be a robot, and you're certainly not meant to suppress all your emotions, but neither are you meant to be a little puppet dancing on the end of, the last God knows how many years or decades of your life. You're meant to be choosing and curating at least what happens in your own skull. And it's generally the only agency we ever really truly have is between our ears. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.